Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Show. Looking at the second round series in these NBA playoffs between the Nuggets and the Timberwolves going off on Saturday here as we get started for this next round. Looks like the Clippers are not going to be going to the next round. The Mavs should be winning this thing in 6 as I'm recording this right now, and also saw the Cavs get extended in their series. The Magic won that one in Game 6 at home, so we will have a Game 7, that Cavs-Magic series after Donnie put up that 50 burger. But I've got 5 bets from Game 1 in this series for the Nuggets and the Timberwolves, as well as some series prices, some ways to look at how we can play some futures for who's gonna how this series is really gonna unfold, who's gonna win, how many games, that kind of stuff. So let's get right into it. Talking about those series prices real quick, over 5.5 games and Denver minus 1.5. That's how we kick off the video here. Now, the minus 1.5 for Denver means that they have to win, obviously, in 4, 5, or 6 games. At this point, they can't let it go 7, and they've got to win it in those amount of games. Plus 115, still like the juice there. I think we're making a little bit of a mistake, basically, by just going like, well, the Nuggets haven't really won very much or haven't been leading very much during the playoffs so far in that first series with the Lakers. And this Timberwolves team just waxed the Suns 4-0. We know that they're probably the best team with the best chance at beating the Nuggets, who seem like they're destined to make it back to the finals. Honestly, that's where my overall futures are, is with them to win and repeat as champs here, because I mean, I don't have any good reason not to. And really what it comes down to, and why I think this is still going to be the Nuggets series in this one in 6 or better, is because of the fact that they have a way better fourth quarter offense than the Minnesota Timberwolves. When things tighten up, yes, Ant Edwards is fire. He's filthy. He's the next closest thing that we've seen to the way he moves and his attitude to he who must not be named or compared to from the Chicago Bulls. You might have heard of him, right? Like that's what the narrative is for the fourth quarter, is like, give it to Ant, hope he can really just take over for the Timberwolves. I don't like that as a strategy against the Nuggets, who have the best fourth quarter offense. They have the best really sort of secret weapon. They have a trump card. It's like when you're playing Madden and you basically just know, if I go to this play on third down every time, I'm going to pick up 5 to 10 yards. That is the Nuggets offense in the fourth quarter, is the pick and roll with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. So I'm really just going to ride that to minus 1.5 on the series. As far as the games go, I do think it's going to be close, though. So it's almost like a little bit of a hedge, if you want to look at it that way, in terms of this game going 6 games, right? Like the Nuggets can still win in 6 and we're good to go, which is kind of what I'm banking on. But it's also a little bit of a hedge in case that the Timberwolves keep it close, or God forbid, the Nuggets don't win this series and the Timberwolves do. You still win that bet there for a full unit back to go 6 games in this one, which is all a little bit not correlated with my first bet for Game 1. But obviously all these things are still very likely to happen, which this bet here, Jamal Murray under 34.5 points, rebounds, and assists, close to even money for that. And there are some 33.5s hanging out now. So this is still a very good value bet if you can get it at minus 102 on DraftKings. This really comes down to the Jaden McDaniels factor. He has gone under in his last 6 versus this team with Jaden McDaniels, who you probably remember punched a wall out of frustration in a game at the end of the last season and wasn't really available for the rest of that Nuggets series in the first round, and they lost 4-1, right, in that last series in the first round. Well, Jaden McDaniels is back, and that's one of the biggest differences this year for this team, including a couple others, obviously Ant taking the leap and all that, but Jaden McDaniels is going to be inside of Jamal's jersey in this series. And really the key thing here is, like, look at the amount of shots that he's taking. Jamal Murray in the playoffs averages, I mean, in the season as well, averages about 18 shots per game. In the playoffs is up at around 23 shots per game, has shot 24 times, has shot 28 times in the series versus LA in the first round, and wasn't shooting that well in that series, but he's not even getting these shots off against Minnesota. Like, Jaden McDaniels ain't Austin Reeves and vice versa. So Jaden McDaniels is going to be somebody who's just going to be draped on him, probably 92 feet, 94 feet up and down the court, just like I said, draped all over him. And that is also really a couple of things that work there in the favor of Jamal going under on the rebounds and assists as well. One, it's going to be tiresome to play offense against Jaden McDaniels. The other thing for the assists and the rebounds, though, if you look at the assists, 11 potentials in these last 6 games versus Jaden McDaniels, and 6.2 assists per game. That's fine. I think the assists are the thing I don't like betting under the most, but I still think you add all of it together because he can't do both at a high enough rate to get him to 35 PRA. As far as the rebounds go, he's up against a dude who's much bigger than him, much better rebounder than him. And also, it's just not where he's going to be on the floor moving forward. Like, he's not going to be able to get into the paint nearly as much as he did in that Lakers series, the way that this Timberwolves team defends the entirety of the paint. So he's going to just be collapsed upon as soon as he gets in there. Maybe not by the guy guarding Nikola, but Nikola and him don't really spend that much time in the paint together anyway. Nikola usually is in the paint and then passing off to Aaron Gordon, making cuts on the baseline, things of that nature. So point being, for the rebounds, Jamal's not going to be close to the basket. It also helps with the points, knowing that he's going to have to make a lot of shots to get there because he's not going to have a lot going to the rim. Conversely, Nikola Jokic should be fine getting his points. So we're going to take him over 27.5 points because this is what he does versus Minnesota. My favorite story, I'll tell it probably a few more times as this series continues to roll on. But my favorite story is that one time there was a dude who was going to double Jokic as Rudy was guarding him. And Rudy calls off the double team and Jokic goes, "Brother, I have 47. And I love that story because it's indicative of how Jokic views this series. One, it's not as easy to get dimes against this Timberwolves team. They don't help, and you're going to see that. Rudy's going to be left on an island a lot, or Cat with Rudy coming over to help. But the point is that Joker's not going to find quite as many assists available to him on shooters outside the paint because those dudes are going to be draped all over the shooters like Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray, to be specific. They're not going to be getting open looks from deep. The Minnesota Timberwolves are incredible at limiting stuff on the perimeter for just that reason, and their perimeter defense is helped by the fact that Rudy doesn't usually need help down low. That said, this ain't the same. This is a one of one in terms of Jokic playing down low, and he has clearly shown a propensity and a desire to score, which is why he's gone over in 3 of 4 meetings this season. 36 minutes and 22 field goals. Now, the 22 field goals might not seem a lot when you're talking about one of the best players in the league, but this isn't a dude who shoots 22 to 23 times, right? This is a dude who normally shoots around 17, 18, sometimes even less than that because he's happy to facilitate. But because of the fact that this Timberwolves team is not going to double off of their guys at all, Jokic is going to have one-on-one matchups. And when he's not really worried about which stat he gets, he's worried about what's the most efficient way to get a bucket for his team. And if it's him shooting, then he's going to shoot. And that's going to be what you see in this series, is not double teams. And maybe that changes, but to open up, I got to believe in what I've seen in the regular season and when these teams have played in the last couple seasons, which is Jokic just gets left one-on-one and then goes to work. The only reason he had 25 and didn't go over this in one of these meetings this season is because it was a 30-minute. He only played 30 minutes, and it was a blowout. But he was well on his way to getting 25 if he played another 6 to 7, which is what he averages against this team, right? So love Joker to go over in this one, and I'm even considering a parlay with this next bet. Cat over 7.5 boards, minus 118, and I really like Karl Anthony Towns' rebounds in this series. I'm not ready to necessarily back Cat in the playoffs as a scorer, although he's been really good already in this year's playoffs and against the Suns, who had no matchup for him, which is a really big reason why he got so many stats and piled up points and rebounds in short amount of time, because he was only averaging like 26, 27 minutes per game in that series against the Suns, because that series wasn't meant for him the same way that this series is meant for him, because you need to play big against Denver. So we're going to see him matched up either with Aaron Gordon or Joker. Either way, he's going to be close to the basket on defense and on offense as well, as Rudy has actually been doing a little bit more screening up high. Cat will have his shots out on the perimeter for sure, but I do know that I do really think and project him to be taking a few more shots closer to the basket, which all just helps him be more in position for offensive and defensive rebounds, right? He's gone over this in 5 of his last 6 against this team, only played the Nuggets once this year, and the other 5 are from last year's playoffs. But I mean, I still think there's a lot of similarity to that, in that the only real difference is Jaden McDaniels is here for this year's playoffs and wasn't for last year's, but he definitely doesn't really impede on Cat's rebounding at all. He's going to be out on the perimeter guarding Jamal Murray, and then on defense, and then on offense, like, yeah, maybe he'll be a little bit closer to the basket at times, but Cat's still going to be getting down there. So the 14.5 rebound chances for him are pretty much indicative of what I think is going to happen in this one as well, because of all the reasons that I just said. So I'm going to continue to roll along. If you do combine these two, I took Jokic 25 plus points, Cat at his normal rebounds, over 7.5 for him to get 8+. That gives you plus 175 on DraftKings. I didn't even put a graphic up for it. Just want to see who's paying attention, because that is a parlay that I'm going to give out in the Discord here as well. Still got 2 more bets for you, but speaking of that Discord, it is live. It's been live now for a little bit of time, and we're having a really good time in there. So just wanted to remind everybody to jump in there with the description of the video here. Has the link to the Discord, free right now, so you can jump right in, get some of these best bets early as I give them out to the Discord before I get them up on video, obviously, and then also a few live bets here and there and the added bets from the live stream. So if you do want to jump in there, link in the description. 2 more bets, pretty heavily correlated to each other, to be honest. Nickeil Alexander-Walker under 12.5 PRA. And I was pretty ready to fade Nickeil Alexander-Walker, knowing that these two teams were going to face in this round of the playoffs right after our dude just got a ton of minutes against the Suns in that series where he was super crucial, right? But this ain't the Suns. This is Denver. He played 30 and 32 minutes in the last 2 games of that series, even played close to 30 in, I believe, the first game as well. Second game was the Jaden McDaniels game where he went clean off. But without with too many bigs for Denver and without a ton of shooters, the way that the Suns were a heavily perimeter-oriented team, now you're talking about a dude that doesn't quite have the same amount of value and probably won't be getting those like fourth quarter minutes that he took from Cat. I would also throw out there, Cat was in foul trouble in a couple of those games because he's forced to guard dudes that are much quicker than him and KD, right? And so it was a little bit tougher matchup for Cat. So when he was in, he was pretty effective by outscoring the dude that was like, he and KD were going at it. He was taking KD down low. KD was taking him out on the perimeter. And that just meant that like he could stay in for the first half and a bit of the third quarter. But Cat wasn't really a big part of those fourth quarter lineups. They needed the guys that were going to guard KD, Booker, and Beal, right? Well, that was Nickeil Alexander-Walker in that game, not in that series overall. Don't think that's going to be the case for him anymore. And you're going to have Jaden McDaniels on Jamal. So that really leaves Nickeil maybe sometimes on Michael Porter Jr., but they're still going to have plenty of other guys that can come in and take time from him, like Slow-Mo Anderson. Kyle Anderson might get a few more minutes in this one, as he did in the regular season when they played the Nuggets team, because you need cerebral players in there to play the highly cerebral Denver Nuggets. As far as the rebounds and assists, like when he is out there guarding, at times he'll be guarding Jamal when Jamal stays out there for the second unit. Other times, probably looking like a Christian Brown matchup, something to that effect if he plays some more backup minutes. And with that in mind, like he's out further away from the basket for those rebounds. As far as the points too, a really interesting fact here is that he is a corner 3 shooter that really relies on threes to help him get his points props when he does go over. Well, his threes prop is at 1.5. He needs to hit those threes to go over. Kind of, if he doesn't hit 2 or 3 even, he's not in a good position to get that, right? So I think the minutes, if you put him down at about 25, that's a lot more reasonable and likely than the 30 or so that he was likely to see at any given point in the Suns series, and did see 2 or 3 times in that series in terms of 30 plus minutes. With this current situation, the lack of projected minutes for our guy, I'm going to take him under in game 1 and see how it goes. And as mentioned, the final bet here, going to probably be pretty popular, I would imagine. Everybody loves Naz Reid, our 6th man of the year, and everybody would really like to be able to bet on him, but then it just wasn't his series last year. So if that first bullet looks similar to the last slide, it's because NAW and NAZ, for lack of a better way to put it, are somewhat interchangeable in that when they need to go big, the Timberwolves play Naz. When they need to go small, they play Nickeil, or they need to guard the perimeter more than go small, they bring in Nickeil Alexander-Walker, right? But this ain't the Suns. Denver too big, which we just said. He's now also facing the worst bench left in the playoffs. And shout out my co-host on thelines.com, Nate Weitzer. Really good look here about why did Naz Reid not get as many points and counting stats really in the last couple games where he was a starter versus this Denver team? Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious pretty quick. Denver does not have a good bench. It's the worst bench left of any team in the playoffs, that's for sure. And also, I mean, it was a decent bench all season, but they definitely lost a little bit of the depth that they had with Bruce Brown and with Uncle Jeff Green last year on their team. And now both those guys gone, they're a little bit worse on the bench for sure, especially with how much they need to play guys like Reggie Jackson and their backup bigs. They don't even have Thomas Bryant anymore. They're looking at like DeAndre Jordan minutes, which I'm sure that they would love to avoid, which is probably why Aaron Gordon's going to get a lot of minutes. But when Naz comes on and he does play against that second unit, he's going to be one of the better scorers on the floor at that point. Maybe you keep Ant in a few times with him, but he's going to be the best big scoring guy on the floor at that time, even if he is in with Rudy or if he's in with Cat at times, which I don't think that'll be the case because the Joker's going to be out there for too much. But I think you give him a few more minutes is the main thing here, right? And if he's playing those minutes against bench players, then he's going to be in a really good matchup. So give him 25 minutes and he's good to go. I mean, he got 11.5 PR in the last series at 18.5 minutes per game. And I think you give him a little bit more because not only is he a little bit better matchup in general, for like that he's a better player offensively than Nickeil Alexander-Walker, It's also a better matchup defensively when it comes to the bigs that you're going to see on the floor consistently, which I do consider Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. bigs, considering how tall they are. You're going to need a bit more depth and length, I should say, to help get those rebounds and to help to guard those bigs on the Nuggets here. So we're going to take Nas in the first game here over 11.5 PR. Final reminder before we roll out here that we do have props.cash with a nice little code there that gets you 25% off in the first month. So use LYB24. Make sure that you do check it out if you're interested in props.cash. That's what we're using on the live stream every single day moving forward. Going to have a later live stream tomorrow than normal on the weekends, but I'm going to be going about an hour before tip of this Wolves and Nuggets game. I'll make sure to get that info out to you guys. Also going to be on the Kyle Kerm show at 11:30 a.m. Eastern tomorrow on Saturday. So if you do want to come in, check that out for some NBA bets. Really good show. Happy to join the sauce. And until I see you then, happy betting.